Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if it's your first time here. Please do consider subscribing. So today we're going to talk about one of the most anticipated games that people are looking forward to for the last probably few decades to get remade, and that game is Super Mario RPG. Now, if you're not familiar with the game, it was developed by Square back in the 90s, 1996 to be specific, and it was very different at the time. You know, Square was coming off of games like Chrono Trigger and all the Final Fantasies and things like that. So to make a game, an RPG nonetheless, based on Super Mario characters was kind of unheard of. And then we did see the influence of those games for later Mario games down the line. So let's get right into it. Now, before we get into the review for the game, we do have the giveaway for the Nintendo 64 controller for Nintendo Switch Online. So once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we will be giving that away. All you gotta do is like, comment your favorite Nintendo 64 game, and subscribe to the channel, and then we will be giving that away once we hit 1,000 subscribers. So make sure you guys do enter that, and I appreciate all the support. Now, to get into the review, so just some background on the game. I never played this game growing up. It came out, like I said, in 1996. I was like 2 years old. I did have a Super Nintendo, but this was a game that I just didn't own. And it's just one of those games I kept hearing about it for years. Just like, you gotta play this. There's like a few games that are like super influential for games like Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, Final Fantasy VII. Like, there are a bunch of these games, and ironically are RPGs that people are like, you just gotta play. So when they announced in June that this game right here was going to get remade, a lot of people were very excited. Now, the only real ways to play this game was either you had to have it on Super Nintendo, you had to have it on the Virtual Console on the Wii or the Wii U, and then they did release it on the SNES Classic that came out in 2017. I did plan to get around to it, but I just couldn't really get past the graphics. So this remake, making them look a lot more modern, was, you know, definitely the way to go. And a lot of people were excited to jump into this game for the first time, like myself. Now, like I mentioned, the game was developed by Square, and it was directed by, I hope I don't butcher this name, but Chihiro Fujioka. I hope I didn't mess that up, but basically he was a director for this game, and then he went on to work with some of the spiritual successors like the Super Mario and Luigi RPG series, you know, Superstar Saga and things like that. When it comes to the art direction and the graphics for this game, as you can see, it's a little more like chibi style. You know, people are a lot more rounder. It's very colorful. It's very Mario and vibrant, and you know, there's a bunch of different environments. Of course, you got the lava areas, the forest levels, the water levels, things like that, and it just looks pretty good. You know, I have no complaints about the style they went with. Like I said, the old style, how they had to try and fit it on, you know, the cartridge, and how it was like the 3D rendered backgrounds and things like that. Like, that was a new style back in the day, but I don't think it really translates that well to, you know, how it is nowadays. And everybody kind of knows, if you don't know, look it up, but the backstory on, you know, Square and Nintendo's relationship, and the whole, you know, cartridges versus disc, and Nintendo 64 versus the PlayStation 1, and how Square kind of went over to the Sony side and everything like that. So this was kind of that last like game that Square was like, this is made for Nintendo. Like, this is what we're pushing. You know, they had Chrono Trigger in the past. You had a bunch of Final Fantasies on Super Nintendo. So this was kind of that last, I don't want to call it last hurrah, because they do have a better relationship now, but like being specifically developed for the Super Nintendo. And now with every RPG, you know, you have to have a good story. Now, normally, you know, with these games, you know, Zelda, Mario, it's kind of like, oh, the bad guy's trying to take over the world. They stole the princess. We got to save her. And the game does start like that. Bowser does kidnap Princess Peach, but then after that, we do meet this, what's called the Smithy Gang. So a giant sword comes down into Bowser's Keep, and then a bunch of different like weapon type enemies are just like infiltrating the castle and kind of taking over the world. And then that later leads to what we seen in a few Paper Mario games and other Mario RPGs is, you know, Bowser being a playable character. The team just teaming up and, you know, saying like, listen, we could put our differences aside. I don't like what's going on right now. For the sake of the entire world, let's team up and let's stop this guy. Now, the original title for Super Mario RPG was Super Mario RPG and the Legend of the Seven Stars, and that's kind of part of the story, you know, with the Smithy game coming. These 7 stars that, you know, are based on this Star Road realm up there, and that is where, you know, people kind of, they make their wishes and things like, you know, it kind of leans into that, like on the shooting star and all that kind of logic. So those 7 stars have been scattered around, and now that needs to be brought back together, which enters a new character, Gino, who is actually a puppet that's like, I don't want to say possessed because that sounds evil, but yeah, basically possessed by a spirit from that realm. You get Mallow, who's another character who thinks he's a tadpole because he grew up around toads and frogs, but clearly he's a cloud, which, you know, kind of leads more into the story. No spoilers on that, but there's a lot of characters in this game, and I think that is part of an RPG, you know, not just the NPCs, but just being able to talk to everybody, whether it's the people in your party, the NPCs, just absorbing the world. There's a million different enemies in this game that you do not see in any other game, at least that I'm familiar with. And then, of course, the different areas and the different people that inhabit each of those areas. So, of course, you have, you know, the Mushroom Kingdom with a bunch of the toads running around. You have Moleville with a bunch of the moles. You got, you know, this Monster Town, which is a bunch of people that used to work with Bowser, but now they're, you know, trying to change their life and regroup. Kind of like those people that go to jail and then they come out and try to be reformed. That's what it is. You got Yoshi Island. You got a bunch of different towns and different people, and, you know, you talk to everybody that you can. Sometimes you get different items. Sometimes you just absorb the, you know, narrative of the game. And I think that's the other cool thing about this is like the humor. Like some of these jokes, I don't know if they're recycled or they're brand new or a mix of both, but like the humor in this game is actually pretty decent. Like I did laugh out loud at some points, like just, you know, when Bowser's like grumbling to himself, like trying to convince himself that he's just doing this because he's trying to help himself, and everyone's following him along, and like Mallow thinking he's a turtle, a tadpole or a frog because he grew up around them. Like there's a lot of fun. Peaches question mark item that you find in her room. Like there's a lot of like funny like RPG beats and hits in this game that I think really, you know, like I can see how this game got a lot of people that weren't really into RPGs after playing the game. Now let's talk about the gameplay and, you know, some of the combat and things like that, because it is an RPG at the end of the day. So of course it is a traditional turn-based RPG, but there are a few different mechanics that either weren't in the game before or now they are in the game. So now you have the timed attack, which was revolutionary at the time. And when you play games later, like I play Sea of Stars this year, right? And I could see the influence from this game on that game, like the timed attacks, the time blocks, the special moves, things like that. And the cool thing about this game, and also I don't call it a downside, it's kind of like you got to decide if you like it or not. I didn't mind it, but it was basically you can press A to hit a timed attack to do either a stronger version of an attack, or sometimes it'll do like splash damage or attack multiple times, things like that. But then you also could time a block. And now when you time a block, it'll literally do 0 damage, which is great. The only problem with that is there are also unblockable attacks. And I feel like the only reason there are unblockable attacks is because you can technically block everything if you get the timing right. Now, that's cool, but it's kind of like if you mistime it, and every move has a different type of time on it. If you mistime it, you could do, especially near the end of the game, like they can one-shot you, or like you could level up as much as you want. They're still doing 280, 174. Like they're doing a lot of damage. So it's kind of like this, you have to kind of choose, like, do you like that or not? Now, along with that, you do have, you know, your special moves, and you use FP instead of MP, which is normally like magic power or mana power. It's like flower power. So you have your different moves. You know, Mario has his jumping attacks, his fireballs. You know, Gino has his different like laser beams. Peach has a lot of like healing and status effect type of moves, as well as a super strong move later down the line. So you kind of gotta decide like, okay, how do I assess the situation? Sometimes you have to guess or just use stuff, because certain moves, they're resistant against some things they don't hit. And in this game, you can't see that unless you use Mallow's special move. I will say it's not necessarily too challenging. Like, I did get a game over a few times, but most of the time it was either because of a boss fight, and most of those were like the later bosses. Like the last two bosses I did find pretty challenging, like I'm not gonna lie. And you know, I did have my gripes with some of the combat and things like that. So for example, you have to keep Mario out at all times. So like whether it's like how your party set up or during the battle, like you can't switch Mario out. I don't know why that is. The other thing I didn't like is you can't heal, or like, you know, in Pokemon you could throw someone in your bag, or someone who's not out in the battlefield, you could heal them and do different things and switch them out. In this, you gotta leave their dead body there, then heal them or bring them back to life or whatever, which I don't know. Again, I don't know if that's just like it adds to the challenge, but it's, I don't know. I didn't really enjoy that part of it. The other thing is you can't choose who goes first, which I think is based on your speed stat, like who it'll choose to go first. So if I wanted to attack with someone else and like I'm coming up with strategy in my mind, I can't do that. It's whatever the game chooses, who's going to go first is who's going to go first. So there was just a few things in the combat that like I would have preferred it to not be like that. And then a new mechanic they added to the game that wasn't in the old original version was the introduction of triple attacks. Triple attacks are special moves. So as you're, you know, attacking and getting perfectly timed attacks, blocks, things like that, your gauge meter actually builds up. And what this gauge meter does is once it gets to 100%, you could do a triple attack, and the triple attack varies depending on who's in your party. Now, when you first start the game, you obviously it's just you and Mario, and then you add people onto the party, and then you'll get new triple attacks. And these triple attacks vary depending on who you're using. If you want to use Gino, Mario, and Bowser, or Gino, Mario, Peach, or Peach, Mallow, Mario, things like that. You might do a super attack that attacks everybody. You might do a healing attack that does a lot of, you know, or not attack, but, you know, a healing move that does a lot of refreshing and clear status and things like that. So I think that was a really cool feature, and, you know, something that a lot of games add, you know, when you build up a meter and then you're able to do like this ultimate attack. I think that was a great addition to the game. Now, next I wanted to go over some differences, you know, just for people that either if you played the old version or you were thinking about playing the old version and you want to know how it compares to the new version. So I looked these up, some differences. So one of the first differences is just the length of time to beat the game. So the original is around 17 hours, and this game is around 11 or 12. So that's a smaller difference. I don't know if that was because it just took longer to move around and some of the quality of life things, but speaking of quality of life things, there was a lot of quality of life additions to the game, such as fast travel, quick auto saves, storage unit, things like that, which I feel like are kind of standard in RPGs now. So when people hear that, like, oh, they added this, it's like, well, how are you playing this game back in the 90s? Like, I just feel like fast travel is something that has to be in every game. Like, I'm not running across this board trying to get to where I need to go, and the shortcuts and going around the back end. I can't remember where this is. Like, it's, trust me, the quality of life additions would have been much needed back in the 90s as well. I feel like quality of life additions just need to be, it's like a code name for, hey, this game is very unconventional and cumbersome back in the day, so we're making it better. That's literally what it means. The other cool addition, like I mentioned the triple attacks, which weren't in the original game, but another cool thing that I didn't know was, so in America, Princess Peach was known as Princess Toadstool for the longest, and it brought back the core memory in my mind of when I was playing Super Mario 64, and you know, Peach sends you that letter to come to the castle or whatever, and she signs it Princess Toadstool Peach. And apparently in America they didn't think like the name Peach went with Mushroom Kingdom or whatever, so they came up with Toadstool. But in Japan, she was always Princess Peach. So that was a switch that now that everybody knows her as Princess Peach, they changed her name in the game too. So that was just like a small little, you know, tidbit that I found out. Now let's talk about the lasting appeal of the game. So it did. So on howlongtobeat.com, it says it takes around 11 hours or 11 and a half hours, 20 hours for completionists. It took me around 15 or 16 hours to beat the game. Like I said, the last few bosses were a little challenging for me, you know, so my playtime was a little higher. But I do think like it is a good length pause. Like I think it doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't stretch it out. It's not too short. I think it tells a complete story, and you know, you'll get pretty much a good amount of time out of it as you're playing it. As far as the post game, there is a post game challenge. If you want to go fight all the bosses again, you can, and they're a lot stronger, a lot more challenging. So if you want to do that, you can. And then there's a secret boss as well at the end of the game. So if you're willing to sit through that, I personally wasn't, but if you're willing to do that, you want to keep playing the game, you can do that as well. And now let's get to the final score of the game. So I personally gave this game a 7 out of 10, and for some people that may sound like blasphemous because of the game and the history and all that, but I do like kind of agree with what everybody's saying. Like, it's not some super in-depth, like complex RPG, and like games don't have to be like that. Like, I don't need a game where like, oh, I have to think and strategize super far ahead of time, but like it does seem like that game that if you weren't into RPGs, you played this and then you kind of, you know, it was a stepping stone in it. But, you know, just some of the things I mentioned that I didn't really like not choosing which character I wanted to attack, and some of the unblockable attacks. So it's kind of like you just have to get hit. It wasn't super difficult. Like I said, some of the bosses were a little challenging, but it was good. Like, it was good. It was decent. It just wasn't like, it didn't blow me away. Like, it wasn't super crazy where I was just like, I just gotta play this. But I do understand why a lot of people did like it. Now on Metacritic, it did get an 83 or an 8.3 user score as well. So people are rating it a little higher than me, but they are saying like, yeah, it's a good game. It's solid. It's definitely enjoyable. Like, we don't have a lot of negatives to say about it, but it's just not going to wow you like that. Now, would I pay $60 for it? I don't think so. Now, some of these first party games, you might catch them on like a digital sale, maybe for like 40 or something like that. Or maybe if you could get it used, you know, I got mine off eBay brand new from a seller, so it was $50, which isn't bad, but I definitely think it is more of a like $40 to $45 game. So if you could get it for that price, definitely recommend it. But if you like Mario, you're into RPGs, you like, you know, this is a good game to have on Switch too, just in the collection as well, then I say go for it for sure. And that does it for my review of Super Mario RPG, guys. So like I said, don't forget to enter the giveaway for this. So just like, subscribe, and then leave a comment on your favorite Nintendo 64 game, as I said, and let me know if you guys ever play Super Mario RPG, if you're looking forward to it, if you're waiting for it to go on sale. If I was completely off on this review, of course, let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, I appreciate it. Like, subscribe if you have not already, and I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.